When you're searching for truth and meaning in your life, you're pretty likely to go to the internet for some answers. The internet is a vast place. There's something for everyone, and everyone's competing for attention. And the type of content that targets young men in this day and age is called red pill content. In this video, I'll be sharing the story of how red pill content initially saved me, and then did a 180 and almost ruined me. So what is red pill content? Basically, it's content that revolves around the idea that society has fed us lies, and consuming this information is like taking the red pill from the movie The Matrix to see the real truths. And this content typically involves male self-improvement. On one side of the spectrum, you get guys talking about purpose and discipline, and on the other end, you get stuff that's a bit more extreme. Misogyny, the high-value male rhetoric, alpha, beta, sigma, male hierarchies, so on and so forth. And the reason the red pill has been so popular is because there is a real issue, where a lot of young guys and old guys feel a bit directionless in life and struggle with identity and loneliness in the modern world. Red pill creators step in and attempt to fill that void. Although there's actually quite a bit of truth that these creators expose, which makes the content quite appealing, it often comes bundled with some of the darker elements of humanity. Manipulation tactics and treating relationships as zero-sum power games. Myself, I was pretty deep in the rabbit hole of red pill content before eventually being saved. In my early 20s, I was a banker living out the corporate dream that was sold to me as a kid. But I was depressed as hell, addicted to a bunch of substances, and knew I couldn't live that life forever. So desperately searching for a way out of the hole I dug myself in, I stumbled across some self-development content online, aka the red pill. And a lot of it was great stuff I still use today. Genuinely productive tools and frameworks to improve my mind, body, and spirit. My first exposure to red pill content was gym and bodybuilding content. OGs like Greg Plitt, CT Fletcher, and Ziz. These were influencers at the time, real ones will know. And their message for young men was to hit the gym daily and be the hardest worker in the room, which a lot of us followed and took as gospel. I certainly did. I wanted to look good and get more girls. After putting in hours in the gym, eating right, and doing all the right things, over time I lost 20 kg and I started feeling a lot better than I did previously. But as you get into the workforce and mature as a man, you quickly realize that your physique isn't everything. You've got to make money, know social dynamics, be valuable to those around you, all the stuff needed to become a high-value man. I started delving deeper into the self-help, red pill space, and there was a lot of incredible content on mindset, manifestation, the law of attraction, all this good stuff. I started working as a banker straight out of uni because I wasn't too sure what else to do. And during this time, I was seriously misaligned. I was doing work I couldn't give two shits about. So I took steps to learn skills, to make money on my own terms, and eventually quit my job, which was life-changing in a very positive way. Because I always felt like the traditional education and corporate system was outdated to thrive in modern society. And a lot of the content I was consuming was saying the same thing. And this validated the red pill for me even further. One of the biggest influences in my early 20s was Joe Rogan. His podcast was really hot at the time, and yeah, shout out Joe. He brought on some awesome guests, David Goggins and Jocko Willink, who I thought were really inspirational figures for men who perhaps didn't have the best male role model figures growing up. They preached a lot about discipline being the key to success in any endeavor in life, and as a man, you're gonna eat shit, but you get up and do the thing you're supposed to do anyway. I started listening to these incredible conversations on replay all the time. I'm talking 3-4 hours a day, grocery shopping, at the gym, driving to work, even at work, and any chance I could, I'd put on my earphones and download their mindset. I feel like I was so invested in listening as much as I could because I wasn't too happy where I was in life at the time and I was searching for answers. Listening to these accomplished men talk about their personal struggles and where they came from really humanized them, because from the outside in, they seem to have life pretty much figured out. But obviously there's a lot more to a person than that meets the eye. Listening to someone like David Goggins and how he dealt with abuse, trauma, and various adversities, it was inspiring to say the least. Thanks to him, I got into running. I hated it at first, but I showed up, embraced the pain, grew to love it over time, and eventually worked my way up to running my first ever full marathon. According to the statistics, only 1% of all humans have run a full marathon. And that's still a lot of people, but percentage-wise, that's very, very little. And I gained a lot of self-confidence from actually running one. The months of preparation and dealing with the pain during the race. And if a fat Korean kid who smoked cigarettes for more than 10 years could run a marathon, you certainly can too. And through setting goals and overcoming difficult challenges, I started to see in my mind that okay, I could actually do anything I set my mind to. The year 2022 rolls out. Enter Andrew Tate.
And I said, well, what color is your brigade?
Now, I'd be lying if I said I didn't like his content. I did. He was confident, well-spoken, and had this magnetic aura. And on the surface, he appeared to have all the things that a young man would want growing up. The cars, the girls, the G lifestyle. For Andrew Tate's self-development content, he preaches discipline and hard work to be the pillars of masculinity. But he said it in a way that was just different to other guys. He was jacked, he never stuttered his words. He was also a fighter that turned into a successful businessman. He also said a lot of outlandish things, which you probably know him for, but he also said to look after your family, to fear God, and to surround yourself with like-minded brothers and do difficult things together. A lot of stuff which I think is very much true. Now, if you manage to get past this misogynistic content and listen to him on podcasts, you also know that he actually raised a lot of societal issues, which he famously refers to as the Matrix.
And the reason I call it the Matrix is because a false reality is being projected onto humanity, and they do that by controlling narratives.
Just the way he spoke, like many other guys, I found him intoxicating and pretty fucking fascinating how his mind worked. And coming from David Goggins' world, Tate's content was very sticky to me, and also to those who are already quite familiar with the self-development space. He had me pretty hooked for quite a long period, and I'd have his motivational speeches playing on Spotify in the mornings, on the treadmill. On days I felt lazy, his motivational speeches would often kick me into second gear. During this period, I turned a blind eye to the other side of his content, which was pretty blatantly misogynistic, let's be honest. He objectified women quite badly, didn't really speak about them in a way regarding them as fellow human beings with needs and feelings. And granted, quite expected from someone who was in the webcam business previously. Now, I've got a younger sister who I'm very close to, and I was raised primarily by my mother. And I like to think that she passed down a lot of good values and morals that's allowed me to correct my path, especially when I was going down a bit of a bad path earlier. So I wasn't really a fan of how Tate and other red pill creators like Fresh and Fit would talk about women. Modern life is pretty divided as is. It's left versus right, Muslims against Christians, and I feel like they were dividing men and women even further from working together as God initially intended. At the extreme end, they say things like how rape victims should bear responsibility for their own attacks, and a lot of other blanket statements about how women belong to men and female value is limited to their body count, etc. And I wouldn't really want my mother or sister to be spoken of like that. And after realizing this, I started to reflect a little deeper on his impact on the world. Now, obviously, everyone's entitled to their own preferences when it comes to dating, but taking advice from a previous pimp who had an entire course on how to groom girls for webcamming and exploiting them isn't exactly going to get you fulfilling and healthy relationships, in my opinion. At one point, Andrew Tate was the most Googled man on the planet, which he is famously known for. I found people either absolutely loved or despised him with a passion. And I must admit, I myself had some rose-tinted glasses on. I was fresh out of the 9-to-5, pursuing entrepreneurship, escape the Matrix, all that jazz. But because I resonated with his self-development content so heavily, I was still turning a blind eye towards misogyny, and I was still digesting a lot of his content wherever I could. It started to become an issue when I had a few conversations with my sister and my girlfriend, and they both asked me how I could support someone who spoke about women the way he did. And I said, well, he's still got some good motivational content, and I started making excuses for the bad stuff that he was saying. But through having some further conversations with him, I realized that I was hurting the women around me by continuing to engage with his content and indirectly supporting his message. Now, this conversation helped me zoom out and see things from a different angle. Myself being an introvert, very much living in my own bubble and just focusing on growing the business and training, I wasn't really exposed to the negative effects of red pill content. But in reality, Andrew Tate's message was having a huge impact on the youth, with countless reported cases of young boys harassing female students, teachers in school. And we can all remember growing up, kids can be extreme and quite nasty as they try fit in and impress others. After opening Pandora's box, I couldn't digest his self-development content just quite the same after all this. Now, Andrew Tate is a genius marketer. As most people familiar with his content know, he funnels people into his online education platform, university.com, previously known as Hustlers University, and his inner circle, the War Room, which is a global networking group, a brotherhood you pay almost 8,000 USD every year to be a member of. And you might ask, who in their right mind would pay such a large amount of money to be in a group chat? And the answer is a lot. And I know it might seem like madness to some people that there are grown-ass men and people like me that are consuming red pill content. But if you didn't have a good male role model figure growing up, you might have a flawed internal compass when it comes to masculinity and self-worth. You're probably a lot more prone to substance addiction and being influenced by other people's decisions. And real quick, that's why I'm opening up a few slots for 3 to 5 people for one-on-one coaching, completely for free. If you're someone who's struggled with feeling invisible, or you're fighting through an addiction, or you're trying to rebuild, I want to speak with you. I'm building something and I want to get better at helping people, and all I ask for is a testimonial if it genuinely helps you. Click the link in the description, fill out the form, and I'll get back to you. Now, I personally know acquaintances and friends who have purchased memberships to Andrew Tate's War Room, and I myself have been to a few dinners and cigar nights with these people too. Now, some of them are stand-up guys looking to network with other entrepreneurs, but the vast majority that I met seemed a little bit lost and confused about women and the idea of masculinity, which is the ideal customer profile for Andrew Tate's product. And when you take life advice from a pimp, I feel like it's a pretty slippery slope. Your sense of self-worth starts getting tied to how much money you make, how many women you can sleep with. And as a young guy trying to figure out my way in life, I found myself being indoctrinated by these beliefs for quite some time. But focusing my energy on red pill ideologies made me feel quite empty and soulless inside. And I found a lot of these guys in the War Room and followers of Tate a little bit lost, and they just seem to be imitating Tate and just stuck in a hedonic treadmill, which arguably doesn't bring you fulfillment and happiness. Now, obviously, everyone has a different definition of success, happiness, fulfillment, whatever you want to call it. Who am I to judge? But for me, what brought me into more alignment was connecting and having deep relationships with like-minded people, doing meaningful work, setting and achieving difficult goals, and getting right with God. I think consuming content in your self-improvement journey is vital, but it can also distort your values if you're not careful. In this attention economy, I think it's especially important to do your research on the person delivering the content, digging into their history, their backstory, as well as the funnels to their products and services, and then determine whether they're someone worth giving your energy to. Now, at the end of the day, if anyone wants to improve their life, they should take action in real life instead of spending all day watching videos on how to do so. And your manhood isn't determined by the amount of women or money you have, but rather your wisdom, your inner strength, integrity, and how much of a positive force you are in this world. If you made it to the end of this video, genuinely thank you for watching, and make sure to like and subscribe. Love you all, and peace.